will introduce our next speaker, Chris Hendrickson. Let me know if I'm in your way. So Chris is the Regional Organizing Manager for the Humane League. In 2014, he co-founded the group Vegan Kalamazoo after learning about the horrific suffering of animals on factory farms and transitioned from his career in biotechnology to focus on making the world a better place for animals. Since then, he has served as the Director of Grassroots Outreach and organized for the Yes on 3 campaign in Boston and worked as a campaign manager for Yes on 12 in California. Chris believes that we must collaborate and work together in a pragmatic, relentless, and inclusive way to make meaningful change for animals. So let's give it up for Chris.
Thank you everybody so much for attending. For the one lucky person, we've got one seat right over there. You want to come fill in? Wonderful. Can y'all hear me all right? Yeah. All right. Greetings. My name is Chris Hendrickson, and it's an honor to be here today. I actually attended my first Animal Rights National Conference 4 years ago right here in Alexandria, and it was incredibly impactful for my life, both personally and as an activist. I'm going to be chatting today about state ballot measures for animals, their history, how they work, and why we should all support them. I'm up here chatting today because I've had the unique opportunity to work on the Yes on 3 campaign in Massachusetts as the Boston regional organizer, and on the Yes on 12 campaign in California as the campaign manager. And in both of those experiences, I got to meet some of those amazing people on the planet, and I'm so thankful to see so many of them in this room right now. But now, let's get into the beyond meat of the presentation. I'm so happy that landed. All right. So there have been a number of ballot measures passed to protect animals, as like the Florida Greyhound racing ban in 2018, the Oregon Wildlife Trafficking Act in 2016, and the Colorado Black Bear Hunting Restriction Initiative in 1992. I'm going to be focusing on ballot measures that relate to animals raised for food, since that's my area of expertise, but the principles apply just the same. So, why are state ballot measures important for animals raised for food? Well, simply, they work. State ballot measures are incredibly effective at outlawing animal cruelty and disrupting the factory farming system. Secondly, they are incredibly meaningful. By asking voters to take a stand and choose a side on the animal cruelty debate that plays out every day in our society, voters get an opportunity to choose against cruelty and identify as someone who opposes animal abuse, which then invites them to make more choices towards compassion in their life. And then third, the ballot measure process is exclusively a collaborative one. Groups and individuals from all walks of life get to come together and make a unified statement against cruelty, against the cruelty plaguing animals raised for food. Relationships get forged, and this allows for further collaborative processes to occur, which makes the world a better place for animals. State ballot measures allow us to end the cruel practice of caging hens in areas so small they can't spread their wings. They end the cruel practice of confining a mother pig in a space so small she will never turn around. And they end the cruel practice of confining cows, baby cows, who are raised for veal, who are tethered by the neck in crates. But what is the state ballot measure? Well, simply put, a ballot measure is direct democracy. A group of people propose a law, and citizens get to decide if they want it or not. But not all states have the ballot measure process, though. States that allow for amendments to the Constitution to be made are in blue and orange, while states in blue and green allow for initiated statutes, which are laws that a state adopts via the ballot initiative process. Ballot measure and initiative can be used interchangeably. And then lastly, some states allow for a referendum, which allows citizens to refer a law that passed the legislature to the ballot for voters to decide whether to uphold or repeal. While this may seem confusing, the gist of this is that some states allow citizens to directly implement new laws, which we, as animal activists, can use as a tactic to make meaningful societal change towards the better treatment of animals. And over the last 17 years, major progress has been made to end the extreme animal abuse via the ballot measure process. In 2002, 55% of voters in Florida voted to ban gestation crates for mother pigs. In 2006, 62% of voters in Arizona voted to ban gestation crates and veal crates, which are used for baby cows. In 2008, 64% of voters in California voted to ban gestation crates, veal crates, and battery cages. Please note the S next to battery cages, because this refers to shell eggs. Oddly enough, liquid and shell eggs are regulated as different products. In 2016, 78% of voters in Massachusetts voted to ban gestation crates, veal crates, battery cages, and, this is the big one right here, prohibited the sale of products from these confinement practices, meaning that products cannot be sold in the state of Massachusetts. And then finally, in 2018, 63% of voters in California voted to upgrade the law passed in 2008, which bans battery cages outright for both liquid and shell eggs, prohibits the sale of products from these confinement practices, sets the highest legal space minimums for baby cows, mother pigs, and egg-laying hens, and places enforcement mechanisms for streamlined enforcement of the law. This is a map right here of California detailing the state of egg farming in 2012. Each dot represents 20 farms with egg-laying hens. The data available suggests that there are 13.6 million egg-laying hens, 1.7 million dairy cows, or we can assume 1.7 million baby cows, and 95,000 pigs. The passing of Prop 12 will significantly improve the lives of all of these animals. And this is just in California alone. The effects of ballot measures are felt worldwide as more states and countries work to adopt similar legislation. This impact and continued escalation and elimination of practices that abuse animals is why the Humane League supports ballot measures. They have a tangible, intentional, and deliberate effect on our mission. We exist to end the abuse of animals raised for food. We are relentless in this pursuit and incorporate legislative campaigns into our theory of change to achieve this mission. We have thoughtfully and clearly mapped out our best ideas at how we can achieve our mission and will continue to innovate until we succeed. The Humane League collaborates with numerous groups and individuals on our campaigns. We work to build a movement of animal activists and develop leaders through our programs. We forge strategic partnerships, engage in direct dialogue with decision makers, both corporate and legislative, and run pressure campaigns. We do all these tactics so that animals are represented and spoken for in our society, the factory farming system is disrupted, animals raised for food suffer significantly less, and the demand for animal products decreases. Ultimately, we believe these efforts will end the abuse of animals raised for food. Passing laws through ballot measures is just one part of our overall theory of change, and I invite you to come by our booth later to learn about the other facets. In recent years, in the United States, the Humane League and several other animal rights groups like Mercy for Animals, Animal Equality, the Humane Society of the United States, and others have won commitments to ban battery cage confinement of egg-laying hens and other cruel confinement practices. In total, to date, every major food service company, restaurant, manufacturer, and retailer, and over 400 companies have produced cage-free egg commitments in the United States. The next step is to pass laws to make sure that these commitments are upheld, and this can be done through animal welfare legislation via the traditional process of lobbying first, but if those efforts prove unfruitful, ballot measures give citizens a voice over corporate interests. At this time, I'd like to detail the 3 phases of a ballot measure. First off, we've got signature gathering. Then, get out the vote, and lastly, election weekend. And notice the middle picture, we got Rachel in there for you sometime. Signature gathering may seem like a simple task in itself, but it requires a major amount of people power to complete successfully. In Massachusetts, 130,000 signatures were required to get the question on the ballot. And in California, 600,000 signatures were required. Most of the time, the requirements are based on specific criteria that vary state by state. Signature gathering starts with a tried and true phrase. Hey, quick signature to help animals? This phrase has been uttered more than 1 million times by thousands of dedicated volunteers over the last few years. And speaking of volunteers, volunteer recruitment should be the first thing on any campaign's mind the second after the campaign is launched. Volunteer recruitment is essential. You'll want to organize groups and host events in major cities to find those interested in your cause and willing to volunteer, and you'll need to support them 100% of the way. You'll have trainings and materials and encouragement. Occasionally some vegan chocolates and pizza at work parties helps too. Volunteers are the lifeblood to ballot measures and should be treated with the utmost respect and appreciation. As a campaign, you'll want to create packets of information, which includes petition sheets, information about returning the completed sheets back to Campaign HQ, and information about the measure so your volunteers can study up. There's so much nuance on the matter of signature gathering, and I'm very happy to speak to you about that after my talk, but for now, this is the broad overview. Once your campaign collects the appropriate number of signatures, you'll submit them to the elections office in each county of the state, and then rest up for a month or two before GOTV starts. The Get Out the Vote experience is an amazing one. The question's going to be on the ballot for voters to vote on, and it's your job to make sure that every person you know and meet over the next few months is 1, registered to vote, and 2, informed about why they should vote in favor of animals. A few essential GOTV tactics include gathering endorsements from major groups, knocking on doors to let voters know about your campaign, placing ads on every major media outlet or ad platform, such as online streaming services, social media, and most expensively, cable television. Since I brought up the cost, ballot measures are incredibly expensive, so your volunteers and campaigns should be fundraising big time throughout the entire process. You'll want to have favorable letters to the editor written in as many newspapers and online publications as possible. You'll want to call up or text voters to let them know about your campaign. This is known as text banking or phone banking. And you'll want to give interviews, and finally, when strategic and necessary, appear in debates on your measure. Most of the time, Election Day is set by law for the general election of public officials. It is statutorily set as the Tuesday next after the first Monday in the month of November, or simply put, the first Tuesday after November 1st. Given this, GOTV typically occurs in late August, as many voters are often unaware of an election until a few months before it comes out. There's also the risk that if you start GOTV too early, voters may forget about what the issue was by the time the election comes around. So with that being said, the months of September and October should be packed full of events, letting everybody you know be aware of the campaign that you're working on. Because every second of every day is crucial, especially on the weekends when most volunteers have time off of work to help out. Some states even allow for early voting, so it's even more essential to be raising awareness around this time. And getting to those early voters is crucial, because on ballot measures, there's usually not just one side. Opposition is going to be fighting you the entire way. Lots of great initiatives fail because of powerful opposition. With the rise of the internet being the main way that voters find out about your campaign, it's even easier for opposition to share their point of view, sometimes resorting to sharing blatantly false information to confuse voters. I'm happy to share the wild and outlandish tactics that were used by opposition in Prop 12 and Question 3 after my talk as well. All of the work on the campaign leads to the final weekend, and there's no more important weekend than election weekend. Everything is on the line. Emotions and enthusiasm for the campaign are at an all-time high for the final push to the finish line. I typically include Monday and Tuesday following election weekend as part of this push. They're such important days because voters are researching the candidates and measures and making their final decisions on how to vote. Google ads are wild during this time because every campaign is making bids on that precious digital ad space so that voters are directed to their campaign's website. But equally important to the digital space is the physical geographic space next to the polls. If possible, volunteers should be waving signs and talking to voters about why they should vote in favor of the animals, like you see here. Finally, you'll want to cap off Election Tuesday with a watch party to see the outcome. And if all goes well, it'll be an amazing night you will never forget. I've been a bit spoiled on the 2 campaigns that I've worked on, as I've not experienced defeat, but it is always a real possibility. If you do not give everything you have to the campaign, the regret of, I could have done more, will always be with you, and for the animals' sake, it is essential that we do not experience that regret. We must collaborate and work together to achieve monumental success for animals, because there are millions of animals in this country right now experiencing the most terrible conditions, and we have the possibility to make life better for them. On both campaigns I've worked on, I've seen hundreds of organizations and thousands of individuals come together to support the better treatment of animals. Environmental groups, veterinarians, faith leaders, farmers, animal protection groups, businesses, and elected officials put their name out there for all to see that they endorse these measures. They endorse the position against animal abuse, all right? This incredible show of support only helps make the world a better place for animals. It makes sure that more people are exposed to the horrors of factory farming and allows for regular people to ensure that the cruelest factory farming practices no longer occur. The Yes on 3 campaign had over 1,300 endorsements and 2.5 million yes votes. Yes on 12 had 803 endorsements and 7.5 million yes votes. This sums up to 10 million people taking a stand against animal cruelty and opens their eyes to the torture that is occurring to animals raised for food. All of this work of getting corporate commitments and legislation passed is done ultimately to affect producers and factory farms. By getting corporate commitments to end the support of the cruelest factory farming practices thanks to consumer demand, we disrupt factory farming. By getting voters to pass laws to ban the cruelest factory farming practices, we reinforce those corporate commitments and we disrupt factory farming. We have the power to change this horrible system for animals raised for food, and that is exactly what we will continue to do. I want to conclude my talk with a quote from Margaret Mead. This quote's been in my head ever since I heard it a few years ago, and it eloquently sums up what I hope can inspire you as it has done for me. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that has. I want to thank you so much for coming to hear us speak on this topic. I just deeply appreciate you taking the time. So please come by our booth later to learn more about the Humane League. We have a free lunch and learn session at 1:15 p.m. today in Plaza C with free vegan pizza, so come eat up, and where you can learn how to be a change maker in your own community for animals. We've got a protest against McDonald's as part of our I'm Not Loving It campaign scheduled on Sunday at 7:15 p.m. And we'll meet in the lobby upstairs to organize transport around 6:30, 6:45 to get to the protest location. So I look forward to seeing you all there, and thank you so much for coming today.